So I hope all of you can see my screen, which says the Dream Catchers. Just give me a thumbs up if that's the case. Okay, great. Thank you so much. So very warm welcome to the Dream Catchers session today. We'll be talking about US undergraduate admissions. So I'll just start with telling you a little bit about the Dream Catchers. I'm Surbhi Kumar and I'm the founder of this company. So we are an education consulting firm with a mission to assist students in realizing their dream of obtaining quality and best fit education. And you would wonder, how do we do that? So for grade 9th and 10th student, as you would realize that the immediate need is for the right stream selection, right subject selection. And for grade 11th and 12th students, it's primarily the course and the college selection. So we do set of things which helps them in this decision making, or rather an informed decision making. What we do is we start with something called a psychometric assessment test, and many of you might be familiar with it. And there are a lot of psychometric assessment tests in the market, but we did our own research in terms of talking to different vendors and checking their psychometric assessment test, and we chose the one which has the highest reliability factor. So once we start with the psychometric assessment test, it really assesses the students on 3 dimensions: aptitude, their interest, their personality, and it generates a detailed career fitment report, which gives the insights into the top 10 career clusters which are best aligned to that specific student. Now, keep in mind that that's a quantitative report. It's a quantitative lens. So we marry it with our personalized and individualized counseling sessions. And post those sessions, we create a detailed action plan for the student as needed, and also provide them information around different career entry pathways for the career of their choice or what is best aligned to them. We also provide service in higher education admission guidance space, and it includes both Indian and overseas colleges, where our services includes doing profile assessment and profile building, the country and course shortlisting, best fit college mapping for the student, letter of recommendation and statement of purpose guidance, scholarship guidance, interview preparation, and visa guidance. Okay, so with that, let me give you the lineup of our session today so that you all are clear what to expect in today's session. So you have gathered here to get some insights into US undergraduate admissions, but keep in mind that this is an application process overview. We will not dive deeper into things, but our goal is just to furnish you with some basic details, and then you can take it one step ahead and do your own research. And if need be, we are happy to provide you any kind of assistance there. So we'll talk about different intakes, the application timelines, the portals which are utilized, the application components, how you can plan your application submission, the timeline or like an ideal timeline, what you should keep in mind for creating your college list. And definitely the highlight of our session today is Fireside Chat with Syracuse University. We have Denver D'Souza, who is joining us today. He is the university rep, but he's also someone who reviews and reads applications of students from India who are applying to Syracuse University. So he will provide some general recommendations and advice for US undergraduate admissions, and also something specific to Syracuse as well. We'll also try to keep aside some time for Q&A. So keep posting your questions in the chat or Q&A box. I've mentioned both because sometimes some students are not seeing the chat box as well. I don't know, it must be something with the Zoho setting, but you can utilize either of the two. I'll try to pick those questions during my fireside chat conversation with Denver, or if time permits, we will take it in the end itself. But for you to maximize on this session, it would be good if you can keep posting your questions. So with that, let's dive into the session. Now, I know it's a Sunday morning. You might be having a lazy day. So let's just have a quick warm-up quiz. So now you've gathered here for getting insights into US undergraduate admission. So tell me, how many colleges and universities are there in the US? And I have given a wide range. So just pick one which you think is right. Okay. I'm seeing some responses coming in. Now, I'll just give another like 5 to 7 seconds. Mm-hmm. So majority of you're answering between 2000 and 4000. Actually, that's incorrect. It's between 4000 and 5000, and uh, somewhere around 4500 or so. Okay. So now let's get some insights into what are the different intakes. So fall intake, spring intake, and summer intake. Fall is the one which is most popular for all different reasons, but let's talk about when does it start. It begins somewhere in late August or early September. During this intake, majority of the courses are offered by the university, and Indian students typically opt for this intake itself because it aligns with like their 12th exams gets over by March or so. Their exams are done by May or sorry, the results are declared by May or so, right? So that gives them kind of a natural timeline to take this intake. Also, if you compare it with spring intake, which starts in January, universities do offer programs in this intakes, but those are very limited, right? So if you are looking for specific programs or specific majors, just make sure that, and you are planning for spring intake for some or the other reason, just make sure that the university which is part of your college list is offering the program in that intake as well, right? So fall is the most popular one, followed by spring. Now summer intake is also one intake which begins in May, and uh, many people are not familiar with it for different reasons, but during this intake universities offers short term courses instead of long term. Of course it is not applicable for a full time undergraduate course, but there are cases where students utilize this summer intake as well. Okay. But just make sure you're checking the website of the universities thoroughly to get a understanding of which course is offered in which intake itself. Okay. Next is different application deadlines. I know whenever I interact with students and parents, there is always some confusion around it, and it sounds like jargon and like difficult to digest. So I tried to simplify it for you. So let's talk about early action. So early action, as the word says, early. Basically, you apply by early or mid-November, and you get your decision by mid-December or by third week of December. So before the Christmas holidays itself. Now it's a non-binding thing. When we say non-binding, it means if you're applying to a university in early action round, and if you are given an offer, it's not necessary that you have to really take up that offer and take up admissions there. Vis-a-vis early decision, timeline is pretty much similar as of early action, but the big difference is that it is a binding one, which means that if you apply in a university for a course and in an early decision deadline, then if you are given the offer from that university, you will have to accept it, and you will have to revoke your applications from all other colleges. So you have to be very, very careful with this, and it is suitable for your top choice universities, or what we call as dream universities, and I'll touch upon that point as well. Generally there is just one deadline, but some universities offers two early decision deadlines, so ed1 and ed2, but ed2 is again offered by few colleges itself, and I think Syracuse is one of those, but we'll get to know from Denver more. Now, regular decision, this is the most common one, given it gives a good runway to the student to prepare their application well. So you have to apply by January first week, or sometimes the deadlines are in February as well. And the decisions are relayed to you by end of March or by April 1st. It's a non-binding one, so it makes your life little easy. Rolling admissions is also offered by many of the colleges, where there is continuous evaluation of application which is being done. So until the seats remain open, the college is accepting applications and reviewing it and giving offers. Now, each of these deadlines has their own pros and cons. So you really, when you are putting your applications and creating your college list, you have to be very strategic. How do you want to go about it? Okay. Next is, what are the application portals? It's just a basic information, but you should be aware about it. The most popular one is what is called as Common App, followed by Collision App. These two are the ones through which majority of the universities in the US accept applications. Okay. And it's just that your life is simplified because you're using one portal and you're entering information once, and it is being kind of circulated to universities of your choice as such. But there are other universities, like University of California. They have their own process and their own portal. So all the 9 campuses, and for undergraduate purpose, just 8 campuses, which you will have to utilize UC's, Universities of California's portal itself, and they have their own personal insights questions too. There are other universities like Universities of Texas, which have their own process and own portals, and there are other smaller universities as well. With that, I want you to get your attention to this very important slide, because it talks about the application components. And when I refer to different components, it will also give you some insights around, or get you thinking how you can prepare your application well. So first and foremost, again, a basic hygiene, which is having your application form in the Common App, Collision App, or whatever portal we are utilizing. It has like, you have to include your personal information, name, address, contact details, parent details, basic educational details, and other relevant details. Now, school transcripts, or also known as mark sheets in Indian parlance particularly. So you have to, and specifically your school counselor plays a very important role in this entire process. So he or she would be the one who would be responsible for the sending of school transcripts or uploading it on Common App or other portals. So from 9th to 11th grade, your actual academic transcripts is something which will be shared. But for students who are appearing for their 12th exam, right, there is something called as predictive grades, which the school provides, and it is more like what is your anticipated performance in final year. Now, school transcripts or marks or academics is the most important component, and I cannot stress upon it enough, because good academics will give you kind of like a foot in the door in a decent college or a decent university abroad. So do not compromise on it. Just stretching yourself thin, doing n number of things, but compromising on your academics. No, that's not the right strategy. Other thing is, again, to just showcase your aptitude to the universities is standardized, taking standardized exams like SAT or ACT. Again, it is not mandatory, but recommended, and there are like details around it which we will not touch upon today, but it is just for your information. Then advanced placement exams as well. English proficiency test, IELTS or TOEFL, it is something which is good to take, but given universities abroad also realize that the level of English proficiency of Indian students is something which is decent enough to understand the curriculum delivered there. So sometimes even universities waive it off, but it's good thing to take it and have this course ready. Letter of recommendations, a very important document which is provided by teachers, counselors, your coaches if you are into sports, performing arts or so. These documents speak to your academic abilities, personal qualities, and your accomplishments. Okay. Personal statement or essay, this is again a very important document for you to showcase your personality, your career goals, and why you are a good fit for the particular college or colleges. Other thing is activities list. This is what you will have to really feed into the portal as well, where you will give insights into the admissions team around what activities you did, like were you consistent, not consistent, and it can include anything. It could be clubs, sports, your volunteer work, any kind of internships or part-time jobs you do. Portfolios, this is not for every program, but if you are applying for any fine arts, performing arts, or architecture program, then this is something which is becomes a required document as well, and it showcases applicants' work and creativity. Now, some universities may ask for additional supplemental materials, like the most popular one being supplemental essays. Again, it's not something which every university asks, but some universities may ask as well. There could be few additional forms, but these things really vary university by university and program by program. Interviews is also something which is done by few colleges, And I would say it's not something which is very common in undergraduate programs, but yes, there are few colleges which wants to conduct interview, and I would say it's not for every student, but it can happen for some student as well. It is primarily conducted by admission officers, or in many of the cases alumni interviewers. Like, these alumni are trained how to really conduct these interviews and get to know the student, and then they are supposed to submit a report to the university. School profile is also an important document, and it is again owned by your school and particularly by your school counselor. It offers the admission schemes, insights into the curriculum being offered by the school, your academic environment, the resources which it provides. And you have to keep in mind that the admissions team in the US, right, when they are looking at your application, they are doing a very contextual evaluation. So everything will be done keeping in mind, like, which school you are in, which board you are in, what kind of resources were available, how did you utilize it, and all that stuff. So these admission officers, they are trained to really review applications from specific geographies as well. They would know about different boards and what kind of marks really are good marks in a particular board, and if it is an easy marking system or a difficult marking system, right? So it's a contextual evaluation, and of course it's a holistic evaluation. Academics will give you foot in the door, but selection is dependent upon many other factors. So I hope it was helpful to an extent. Now let's move on to the timeline as well. And again, this is our recommended ideal timeline. You have to keep in mind that timelines will also depend upon each and every case and an individual student. But this is something which, just assuming that if someone is applying for fall intake 2025, how they can go about it, or what is the timeline per se. So your high school years, like particularly your 9th to 11th and even your 12th, you have to take up activities which will elevate your unique profile. And it doesn't have to be like any activity, right? You have to make sure that it is something in which you are truly interested. So it is something which should be authentic, and do not do things just for the sake of college admissions, right? Your interest can be married to different activities of your choice where you can grow as well, right? Or it will add value to it. Just don't do anything for the heck of it. Now, even some students may consider utilizing their grade 11th for giving the standardized test first attempt, or taking few advanced placement exams as well. But again, it's not necessary that everyone has to take SAT, ACT, everyone has to take AP exams. No, it needs to be evaluated in the context of that student itself. Now, your summer months, specifically April, May, June, you can consider giving your second attempt of these standardized exams. You can continue doing or take a few very good profile enrichment activities. Do a lot of research, and again, I cannot emphasize enough, but this is very important, that before you finalize your college list, you research a lot. So utilize this time to do research. Talk to your school counselors about your interest in applying to US, and you would be looking for their help for letter of recommendation. Similarly, with your coaches and other teachers as well. Do pre-work for different essays you would have to write, and this is a very important component which requires lot of introspection, and your authentic voice should be relayed to the admission officer, so you will have to do a lot of work there. Now, in terms of, again, deadlines, if you are thinking of early action, early decision, again, it is somewhere around October, November that you should get done with it. University of California, their application submission is generally around end of November. Regular decision, then it is December, January. So you should be done by that time frame. Why we emphasize doing the major work during your summers, because you have to realize that in your 12th, you will be busy with your school academics as well. And after June, you will have like a lot of unit tests, a lot of half-yearlies, pre-boards, on which even your predictive grades would also depend. So that will be your focus time for particularly devoting it on your class 12 studies, right? So that's why this summer time frame is very, very important. Now, you're done with your application submission. So generally by April, you should be in a position to evaluate all different offers you get, where you intend to go, and then there is some documentation required there as well. May to July is visa process, and this time you should also sit back and relax because you did lot of work. And what you have to really make sure that in the coming years, if you are planning to go to US to do your undergraduate, you are ready for something which is very rigorous and a transformative experience. Okay, so that's like an ideal timeline, but again, things will vary. In terms of college list, focus on creating a list which comprises of dream, target, and safety. And there are definitely a lot of factors which goes into creating this, and such a list will really open your options and increase your probability or chances of securing offers. Okay, so I hope this was helpful. So with that, I come to the end of what I wanted to give you as an overview. Now we will start with our fireside chat with Denver from Syracuse University. And Syracuse University doesn't need any introduction as such, but let me just give you a brief about it. It's one of the old private university in the US. It has 13 schools and colleges. It is in the heart of New York State. If you see the student to faculty ratio, it's a very nice ratio where even in a big university, a student can expect to get a very individualized attention from the professors. Lot of clubs and organizations which will help you develop during those 4 years there. With that, let me just invite Denver. Uh, Allow me a minute, Denver. I'm enabling your video and audio. Welcome again, Denver. Can you see me well? Can you hear me well? You might have to unmute yourself.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, very well.
All right.
Okay, welcome again, Denver. So maybe you can just start with a brief intro of the university, though I just tried to provide something from my end, but over to
Yes.
you, and then we will begin with the fireside chat.
Perfect. First of all, good morning, everyone. Good morning, Surbi. Thank you for having me as well. Uh, so, my name is Denver D'Souza. I'm the regional manager for Syracuse University in India, as well as the admission officer. So, I go through the first read and second read for a lot of applications all around India. Now, talking about Syracuse University. Syracuse University is a private university uh, in upstate New York. So it's just around 3.5 hours away from New York City. Uh, we have more than 200 majors and 100 minors. So, ranging from fashion designing to forensic psychology, um computer engineering, computer science as well. Uh, we have a undergrad population of around 15,000 students. In fact, we have 1,700 Indian students on campus right now. And we have a lot of clubs as well. So we have more than 300 clubs. In fact, there should be at least three Indian clubs too on campus. Now, we are an R1 university, so we have a very high level of research activity. The R1 categorization is given to colleges or universities who have the highest level of um, the faculty, the research budget, research institutes on campus, as well as the professors and stuff. And we have a pretty big campus as well. So our campus is around 700 acres. For students who are really interested in sports, we have 20 NCAA Division One teams. In fact, one of our students uh, had played for the FIFA Women's World Cup last year, where she was representing Canada. And there's a lot more to Syracuse, and I'll be glad to answer whatever questions y'all have.
Thank you so much. So just a reminder to the audience, keep putting your questions in the chat or Q&A box, and we'll pick it up from there. So Denver, I would request you to wear your admissions officer's hat because there are a lot of questions coming your way Firstly, from a general admission perspective in the US undergraduate space itself. So, my first question is, what recommendations and advice do you have for students who are trying to narrow down their list of potential universities and colleges, of course, for undergraduate programs?
Right. So that's a good question, and you have to keep a lot of things under consideration. Now, ideally, it's not all about the ranking of the university. It could be the major that you're looking for. You know,
Hmm.
somebody you could have a very large university would be ranking well overall, but keep in mind the rankings are given about different factors, maybe the size of the university or the student to faculty ratio. But then there are program specific majors that they specialize in different schools, so you have to keep that under consideration. Go and research about the major, not the university. Other things under consideration would be your the weather. A lot of students are not comfortable with a really cold weather. I'm one example of it. So I had done my education in Melbourne. It was really cold for someone coming from Mumbai. So you have to keep that under consideration because that's a really important factor when you're going to go and study as well. uh, you have to keep in mind about the kind of setting that you would like. Would it be a large university? Are you comfortable with a lot of people around, or would you want a small setup when it comes to a college or a university? Again, the campus, is it a urban campus? Is it a college town? There are really important factors as well, because considering maybe you'll be looking for a job. Obviously the opportunities are much more in urban setups, but then again the cost of living, etc., would be higher as well. Again, with the states, you have to keep in mind, different states have a different political bring in those. For example, maybe even the minimum wage that are there in certain states. The minimum wage in the US starts from around 7 dollars per hour all the way to $15 per hour. So okay, again, a lot of students are going to be thinking about working part time to help with their education. And there are a lot of factors which they need to keep, but mainly just look at a major that you're looking to get into and the kind of industry that uh, you would like.
Great, definitely. And I can add on to that list, but I will reserve
Yeah,
that for later because
yeah.
I know we want to get a lot of insights from an admission officer first. So I'll quickly
Right.
move to my next question, which is how does a university, a US university, approach the review of a student's transcript, particularly in terms of the course rigor and academic grades, or what is popularly called as GPA?
Yeah, right. So we get a lot of applications from different boards. Ideally, you have the weight. We have a system where we look at the weightage of certain boards. So the IB board would have a lot more weightage when it comes to GPA. So if you're taking say Maths HL, if we are going to convert a score of 6, where it would be a 4.0 for SL level. For
Mm-hmm.
a HL level, we consider that as 4.5. So
Okay.
these are the when it comes to weightage. But other boards as well, even especially for Indian boards, we are really generous on that aspect. So for IC, we have a similar scoring ratio for ICSE, um, CBSE as well, and for Cambridge, we have a whole different rating system. But ideally, for for IB, we give the highest weightage. But then again, we don't discriminate between boards because we have a lot of students from NIOS who got admissions as well. And just to point out, for students who have NIOS, they probably don't take if they don't have the subject in the curriculum and what may be required, they generally go ahead and take an AP exam in that subject.
Absolutely. Yeah, you're very right. And even like right now, there is a culture of like integrated schools as well, right? So that's where also we'll have to keep in mind how would an admission officer really review the application, and what additional things could be done to make a unique experience for that student.
I'm sorry. Could you repeat that question?
So what I was saying, that definitely you touched upon a few of the Indian boards,
Yeah.
NIOS
Hmm.
as well, and even international boards. But many of the parents and like even students, they go for integrated programs as well, right? And
Right.
they would have to create or like their experience or their high school experience in such a way that it becomes much more holistic when it is being reviewed by the admission officer. So do you have any
Right.
remark or comment there? Because that's what I've seen, that many students, especially from science stream and for all different reasons, they are going for integrated programs as well.
Right. Okay. So, I mean, are you speaking about their application or extracurriculars that they do within that program?
Yes. So what more they can do, because academically, given their focus is very much clear or shown, right? But
Yeah.
what else they can do, and what would like an admission officer really expect in that case?
Right. So, see, ideally, when a lot of students think about, say, for example, profile building, they think that they need to do a little bit of everything, and
Yes.
that's not the case. Uh, when you list down the activities that you've done, say, for example, you've been playing. A student is playing badminton, but they have been playing it within their residential complex itself. When they go ahead and mention that, I've been playing badminton regularly for 8 years, what it shows us is it shows us consistency from a student. It doesn't have to, you don't have to play it at a competitive level, etc. And some of the things which are really important, as you've mentioned, science, there are a lot of programs or students can undergo research as well. And that really helps them because being in a research intensive university, it would be good for you to get a head start or get to the basics on how research is conducted. And I
Hmm.
suppose a lot of schools and a lot of counselors are giving support in that case, and I've been seeing that in a lot of applications. And making your application better, it's not only about going for a summer school abroad or even coming to Syracuse for a summer school. It's what you're doing in that time, which is really important.
Yeah, I think you made a very good point there, because sometimes because of I'll use this word, which is FOMO. Sometimes because of
Yeah,
that, students get into a lot of activities, doing different things, overwhelming themselves, and which might not be best aligned to their interest, but just for the sake of college applications and just because everyone is doing it, they will get into it. But that's not how an admission officer
exactly.
would get impressed, right? And
Yes,
you are not there to impress someone. I would say like it is more around your authentic personality and your authentic voice getting relayed, so that they can really get a picture of, okay, whether this student could be the best fit for the university, and
yeah,
would it be a value add for the student to study in this university or not, right? That's the crux
exactly.
of things. And don't get overwhelmed or stress yourself
Yes.
by doing lot of activities.
Right. And I want to add one more point is internships are really important because I've seen applicants where, they might have not scored really well on that paper. For example, if they're getting into computer science, maybe the score in mathematics was not good, but, they've taken some free courses online or they've done an internship related to their major. Even though their score was less, we still given those applicants an admission because they have showed determination and initiative when it comes to that program and that major.
Okay, great. I have started to receive few questions, and Anay, this is something which we are going to cover shortly. So I will pick this up. So just allow us a couple of more minutes to proceed with our questions, and this will definitely get picked up. Okay. Next one is, what role does essays and personal statements play in the application process? And do you have any recommendation or advice for our students out here for crafting a standout essay, if that's the case?
Yes. Yeah, so essays are really important now. What happens is we do not get a chance to interview every student. So we want to know something about you. When we read an essay, it is basically like an interview, like we're interviewing the students. Whatever you're trying to say and whatever you portrayed, we read between the lines. And your essay, it shouldn't be. We don't want a polished essay. We don't want Shakespearean languages when it comes to your essay as well. We just want to see the real you when it comes to your essay. Because what we look at when we read your essays, we look at your your school spirit, we look at your perseverance, we look at whether you'll be a good fit. And it doesn't matter what the topic is on. The topic could be, on your experience with COVID. Your topic could be on probably your family. But we come to know a lot about when we read your essay, and it is really important. So, except for students who are looking to get into creative writing or journalism, we don't look at the language per se. We don't check for grammatical errors or even how you're framing your sentences. We just want to see your story, or we want you to tell us about yourself through your essay.
Great. Thank you so much for that. And my next question is something which we have covered to an extent, but I'll take it up.
Yeah.
And Hriday also has the question on that line. So I'll club it up with mine. How important are extracurricular activities and community involvement in the admission process? And what is your advice on how should students approach it? And Hriday particularly asks, do extracurricular activities help to increase admission chances? So it's a very direct but a pertinent question.
Right. It really does help. In fact, a lot of schools have made it mandatory for certain hours of community service. Now, where you go a little bit above and beyond is if you're doing something above the mandatory hours. Because when I go through the application, we actually see how many hours of community service the student has done. Was it just mandatory hours? Was it something else? Okay. It's not only what you've done in school that counts. It's what you've done outside school, which is not required by a school as well. So that is really important. And again, speaking about extracurricular activity, it shouldn't be, for example, sports, music. You don't require a certificate for it. It shouldn't be. We're not expecting something at that level. We want to see what you've been doing to basically invest in yourself, and that's the kind of student that we would want on campus. So yes, even if it's probably one activity that you would be having on your application, you know make the most out of it. And it should reflect on yourself as well. And obviously it comes down to your teacher who mentioned all of those in your recommendation letter too. So you don't have to do a bit about everything to just tick mark a certain box, but do what you're passionate about, and but also be really active and be um, forthcoming with your schools and volunteering within your school as well. And don't wait for the last minute, because then you may not get that opportunity to complete this number of hours.
Thanks for that, Denver, and hope Hriday it answers your question. And I couldn't really control myself because I want to add something. I know we are short
Yeah.
of time, but this is something which I want to mention. Given uh, I have some understanding as well, and we have Denver's input too. See, you will have to really see that how you're utilizing the resources which is presented to you, be it by the school environment or outside of school environment. In my presentation earlier, I mentioned around the contextual admissions, right? So it is a reflection to the admissions team that whatever resources are being presented to you in your high school years, how well are you utilizing it? Will you continue to utilize those resources which the university has to offer as much as possible when you are there, right? So if you are sitting in a rich resource environment and you are yourself laid back, not active, not doing anything, it's an indication that you may not utilize the resources which any university for that matter would have to offer, and maybe you are not the best fit because of that. Other thing about community involvement and community service, and this is for some specific colleges too, which are like very big on what kind of citizen you are. Would you utilize the education which we are providing you for 4 years to do something good for the society, right? So if during your high school years, if you're inclined towards doing some kind of community work, it is again an indication that this student might be a good fit for our university, because the resources which we are providing to them, they will utilize it for community welfare or community development as well. So that was my 2 cents there. Okay, I hope that helps. So let me move on to the next point. Can you discuss the significance of plethora of standardized tests these days, and particularly in the light of recent changes to testing policies at some of the prominent institutions where they have gone from test optional now to test mandatory as such? So your view on that?
Yes. So, from a university's point of view and from a general point of view, I have conflicting opinions on that. But uh, we have been test optional since before COVID, and I know there's a lot of schools who are making SATs mandatory, and especially for students in Mumbai and all the metro city, you'll have the resources. So SATs really help as well. Okay, because I'll give you an example. We had a student who was into sports management. The GPA requirement was around 3.6, and because he was into sports, he was a national level player, and he used to go for tournaments. He had missed a lot of exams and a lot of classes. And because of that, his GPA went really, really low. It went below 3.0, which generally on a first sight we wouldn't consider. But because the student had an SAT, he had a good SAT of around 1400, we took him under reconsideration because we knew that this student has the capability and the capacity to go ahead and study well. That means he was not only spending time in sports, it was a demonstration of his intellect and his capacity as well. It doesn't mean that SATs are always going to be a demonstration of intellect, even though you may be really bright. Some students are not really good test takers. But then again, the SATs were based on the American education system. So what I would suggest generally is, even though Syracuse is test optional, go and get the SATs done, because a lot of you have to apply to multiple universities, and some of them may need it, and it would help you even if that school is test optional.
Great. Thank you so much for that, Denver. And we have a few other questions as well. So there is one question from a parent as well. So Maninderji, I am going to ask this question shortly. So I will club yours as well. Okay. So my question is, how much weight does advanced placement exam scores carry in the admission process? And do you have any specific recommendations for students regarding which AP course to take and how to approach AP exams to strengthen their college application? So that's my question to you. And the question from Mrs. Maninder is it mandatory to give advanced placement? So if you can give your views there.
Yeah, it's not mandatory to first of all give you advanced placement courses, but when it really helps is say you have not opted for certain subjects. Now there are two ways it helps. Say you have not opted for to take certain subjects, but it would be a requirement at a college level, curriculum. That's when AP courses really help you. As I told you, for example, when it comes to NIOS or even CBSE, where you have a limitations of the subjects that you've taken, If a certain college would require a certain level of mathematics, per se, then it's really good for you to do those AP courses. Other than that, with your AP courses, you get advanced credit as well. So we've seen students and students who have taken multiple AP courses where they have probably even shortened their required credits to half a year. So
Yes.
just cut it down to one semester, and you save a lot of money as well.
Yeah, thanks for that, Denver. I just want to add one thing, and this is what I have seen back in Chicago when few of the interns in my earlier company, they came from University of Chicago and they were early graduates, and I was very curious how did that happen. So one thing was they also took few advanced placement exams before going to the college because that gave them additional credits, and they also as is it's a rigorous coursework, but they were up for the challenge and they took additional courses during the earlier year and they graduated 6 months early, so they saved on the cost as well. So AP also helps in that, but again, take it with a pinch of salt because it's not that anyone and everyone should do it. And as Denver mentioned, like if you are from a specific board, then you should consider. Students from IB and Cambridge, they should be really careful when they are thinking of doing AP, or if someone is suggesting AP to them, they have to be very sure if that really adds value to them, except like some kind of college credit or so, because it happens only in May and there might be other commitments at your end which might require your attention too. Any specific advice on the courses which should be considered by Indian students, and maybe let's talk about students from Indian boards who should consider taking AP, which subjects, or will it vary? I know it would vary from case to case, but what is your advice?
But see, normally, then generally, what I seen is the courses that students take when it comes to AP. Now, obviously, our curriculum is pretty rigorous as well compared to the US board. So, a lot of them have that kind of requirements that are required for US college, but mainly I've seen students go for, um, calculus itself. That is the most common AP course I've seen students take.
Correct. And like students who are eyeing for public policy and have seen, even if they are studying economics, they still go for macro, micro, AP exams. Not
Yes,
maybe the perfect strategy to take, but just they go ahead with it as well at times.
yes.
Okay, I know Sahiba, you have a question on letter of recommendation, and I am going to cover that as well. So, firstly, I'll ask my question, and then I'll club Sahiba's question. What role does recommendation letters play in the admission process, and what should students keep in mind when selecting recommenders? So that's my question. But Sahiba's question is, earlier you mentioned around school counselors playing a role in letter of recommendation. If we do not have a school counselor, what should we do? That's her question.
I will answer Sahiba's question first. We have a lot of schools who don't have a school counselor. We have state board schools and maybe some CBSE schools as well. You can get a letter of recommendation from your teacher. You can get a letter of recommendation from your past teachers as well. So say for example you're new to the school. If you have a teacher who is familiar with your education, and even though you've left our school, or even though that teacher might not be in a school anymore, you can get that letter of recommendation from them. And it doesn't have to be from a school counselor; it could be from any teacher as well. Secondly, when it comes to certain points that you should keep when you're looking for a letter of recommendation, approach your teachers or your counselor really early, because they are going to be writing letter of recommendations for a lot of students. They're going to be addressing multiple letter of recommendations for different colleges for one student itself. So approach them really early, because they may not be able to get back to you as soon as possible or as soon as uh, you may expect them to. And letter of recommendations are really important because they give us an insight to what you've been doing, etc. As I mentioned, for your extracurricular activities, even though you may not have a certificate for it, but the teachers would be mentioning that in your letter of recommendation. Uh, if you are if you had really low grades in certain subjects, like for example, if you're going for an engineering program and your grades are really low in mathematics, which is a really important component of your application, your your teacher is going to be giving you a letter of recommendation, may be able to give us an insight saying that you had difficulty at certain years, maybe in 9th and 10th regarding with mathematics, but you are generally improving and steadily improving on your mathematics and understanding the concepts, etc. But and we do keep that in mind, and that's why your letter of recommendations are really important.
Great. Thank you so much,
Yes.
Denver. And I hope Saiba's question is also answered. Let me move on to this very important question because I know this is the time of the year when 12th graders are thinking of applying to uh, colleges abroad, and definitely they might feel overwhelmed as well. But what I want to touch upon is, uh, are there any common mistakes which you have seen while reviewing the applications, which the students make during the submission, during the application process? And what would you recommend that the students do from their end to avoid such mistakes?
So, one really common mistake that I've seen, I won't even say it's a mistake, but then that's something that catches our eye, is for our supplemental essays, which we have on Syracuse.
Mm,
I've seen a lot of them because I've kind of remember those that paragraph verbatim is what they're getting online.
mm,
You know, rather than doing that, put some effort into doing the research regarding a university, because there are certain keywords every college application reviewer would know what are the common words and terms that you're using. And don't nothing is do not try to use ChatGPT for your essays, because we go through it really thoroughly. We know when it's personalized and when it's not. So there are a lot of softwares that have come out now, and again with our keen eye, we kind of know which ones are from ChatGPT, and that would be a complete red flag for us. That's what I'm saying. When it comes to your essays, we are not looking at really polished language. We just want to know something about you, and ChatGPT doesn't help at all.
great. Thank you for that, Denver. And I would also like to add one thing here. So, as human beings, we always go for the path of least resistance, right? And as high school students, as is like, I know you have a lot of things to take care of. So, you would want to do something which can do your job and do it well and do it quickly. But keep in mind, there are no shortcuts to this process. If you do not do research well on your colleges, and where you are intending to spend 4 years of your life, so if you cannot take out time now to do the research, then you should yourself put some question mark, like, am I ready to go to a college, right? So research is very, very important, right? If you will not do it well, the supplemental essays which Denver mentioned, definitely it will get reflected there, right? So keep in mind that you are authentic there, you are doing your research, you are not outsourcing things which you should be doing. You will get guide, you will get coaches, you will get mentors, but be ready that the heavy lifting has to be done by you. So if you are ready to do it, then go for it. Okay, so that's one piece of advice from our end as well. Okay, so let me take the question which Ane has asked, and which is also there in my list. So, can you discuss the availability of financial aid and scholarships for undergraduate students at your university? And her particular question was, which is pretty much the same: does Syracuse provide for any aid? Oh, it's different. Does Syracuse provide for any aid for a US citizen residing in India for undergraduate?
Yes. So, in fact, we have given around 62% scholarships this year. We have given 6 full tuition scholarships for Indian students. Now, even though you're a US citizen studying in India, you get advantages of both sides as an international student because your last school visited is in India, as well as the the aid like FAFSA, etc., which you'll be getting as
Yeah.
a US citizen. But we generally have merit-based scholarships, and exactly, we give you all the way to a full tuition scholarship.
Okay. Ane, I hope it answers your question. If you have a follow-up one, just put it on chat, or if you want to go live, I can allow that as well. Just ping whatsoever you want to do. Uh, Next question. Let me take this one. Yeah. So, are there any specific academic or personal qualities that your university particularly values in its applicants? So, that's the question from my end. And
Mhm.
Sia has asked, if I didn't get selected in the first round, early decision, should I should I go ahead and apply in regular decision?
So ideally, we've not had a situation this time, but certain students who maybe their application was not uh, up to the mark, or maybe their GPA was not up to the mark, we have put their application directly into regular decision, change it from ED to RD. Okay,
Okay.
rather than rejecting them. So we do that because what happens is if the application is not fit to be for ED, we put it into RD because in RD then you have a lot more chances of getting in based on the pool of students that we've admitted already. Because we go to various stages at the admission committee. So we have around 2 reads. I go and give my first and second read, and we send it to a team called Shape, where they evaluate the case and we reevaluate it at times, or maybe we go ahead and give you an alternate offer, maybe a second choice major that you are looking for. But
Okay.
yes, we generally go ahead and do that, and that's generally for Syracuse University. I'm not really familiar how the other universities change it from ED to RD, but it shouldn't be a problem.
Okay.
But it will be better. It will be better if, before we go ahead and make a decision, because for ED, generally, as you mentioned, it's a binding decision. Unless you have the not got the major of your choice, there is no reason to go ahead and deny it. You cannot wait for a scholar to see what scholarship amount you're getting and then go ahead and make a decision.
Mm, true. And the other question which I asked around academic or personal
Mhm.
qualities that your
Yes.
university would look into.
Yes. So, personal qualities, as I told, we have 3 categories where we give you ratings for. We look at if you're a good fit, if you're a good fit for the university, or if we are a good fit for you. It depends on, that's where we look at your supplemental essay and where the question is, why Syracuse University? Secondly, we look at perseverance, especially when it comes to, COVID, etc. What kind of challenges did you face, so how did you overcome it, any of your personal struggles that you're going to be mentioning uh, in your essay, or even if your academics, if we see something like you had really low scores, and then how you worked on those low grades. If you've been doing better, and we look at a score in a gradual increase, or if you've been poor in mathematics, have you taken any free courses or etc. to work on it? And we see where when you're trying to better yourself, then perseverance is really important, as well as your team spirit. How active are you getting with school activities? Maybe getting into a debate club or an SA club, or maybe even something regarding relating to sports and participating with events within your school. So those are the things that we look at. We look at leadership really intently. In fact, we have something called a leadership scholarship, and we had a lot of students this year from India who had got that.
Great. Thank you so much, Denver. I know we are just closer to closing the session, but maybe if you can stick around for a couple of more
Yes,
minutes. I have few
definitely.
more questions which has come up, and there is a follow-up question from Ane who asked about the financial aid for a US citizen residing in India. She has asked, may I know on an average what percentage of my tuition fees will be covered by all aids at Syracuse University?
So, uh, in the scholarships that we generally dish out, it is mainly merit-based scholarships. So it ranges from around $10,000. We don't have the exact statistics, but we have from $10,000 to a full tuition scholarship. 62% of students have got a merit-based scholarship this year. Okay. From there, we've had six Indian students who have got a full tuition scholarship. When it comes to the aid, uh, that's all those statistics will be based on the US government, because that's going to be a need based financial aid that you're going to be looking at as a US citizen.
Okay, okay. Uh, Ane, I hope it answered your question. Maybe if you have any other follow-up question, just send it my way over WhatsApp, and uh, I can just send those to Denver as well. Okay. I'll just take up the last question, which is from Sangeeta. And again, it was in my list, and you kind of touch upon that as well. How does your university approach the evaluation of applications of international students, specifically from India? Now, you mentioned about like admission committee, doing first round, right? So her question is, how many rounds of review is the application given, right? So if you can just try to give
Yes.
some answer to that.
Right. So, uh, ideally, for international students and domestic students, it's generally 3 rounds. The most important round is in the first and second round, which I take care of. And then the third round is, once you give a go ahead, it's pretty much done after the second round. But we wait for the offer to come from our shape team. And when it comes to reviewing Indian applications or applications from India, the reason why I do it is because there's a whole different understanding when it comes to the Indian boards as well. All right. Uh, you have a lot of students who are going, I mean, they are studying, like, for example, till 10th grade, they are on a different board, generally jump from CBSE to IB or CBSE to Cambridge. And we understand at these stages when they have a lot of switching between boards, there is a lot of difference in their grades as well. So we keep that in mind. I keep that in mind. I know that, if a student has found it difficult from 10th grade to go into maybe a DP1, their scores will be really low. You rarely see whether scores are, on par or better. So that is the understanding that the other Indian student as well would understand, me understanding the board too. So we take a lot of things under consideration. We may not take the 11th grade marks under consideration in case they have changed their boards. Or then again, we know that as for Indian students, it is mainly about two exams. It's about your 10th standard board exam and your 12th standard board exam. So we see a lot of trends about students doing poorly in 11th standard. because in 10th standard, it's like they've cleared a big hurdle that they've been putting a lot of effort, and I do agree with them. They've been putting a lot of effort for the 10th standard exam, and in 11th standard they take it a bit easy, and then after that they start becoming serious at the end of the 11th grade for their final 11th grade papers, and then in 12th. So a lot of times I see really low grade scores. Generally we give a decision on based on 11th grade mark sheet, but then I see a lot of times we have low scores and I wait for them to get their 12 midterms, because that's where they generally score well again.
Great. Thank you so much, Denver, for answering all the questions. And thank you so much, everyone, for joining and asking such great questions. So, with that, I will close the session for today. But definitely, there are more sessions to come. Our goal is to, as I mentioned, to give you some information to get you motivated to start working in that direction and get you a realistic picture of this entire process. So thank you once again. If you need any assistance, you can reach out to us on the number and the email ID which is given. Have a good rest of your day.
Thank you,
Thank
Surbhi.
you,
Thank you for
Denver.
having
Thank
me.
you so much.
Thank
Thank
you,
you.
everyone.